greatest healer in your life lives within you. A doctor can stitch up a wound instead of bone, but they can't tell the body how to heal. Like only the body knows that. So that was a big teaching for me, to shift my orientation from the doctor's going to fix me to, no, actually, the doctor's going to help me set conditions for optimal healing, but the body's doing the healing.
Today's guest is Elizabeth Kipp, stress management and historical trauma specialist. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Well, thank you so much, Anita. I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm so excited, especially the historical part of it. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about that. With that said, what is one of the most courageous things that you have done?
Well, I've done a couple. I got pregnant and the doctors told me that I wouldn't be able to carry a baby. And because I had a back injury and it would compromise the whole situation. But Anita, I felt so much joy when I was pregnant that I was like, there's nothing wrong with this situation. Right? I just stepped in. So that was interesting. And most of my courage, interestingly enough, has to do with doctors telling me things. The other thing was hard for me was as I said, I had a back injury. It became unstable. I had a bunch of surgery. It was very painful. There was a lot of prescription medication afterwards. And it went on for quite a while. And the doctors told me that I had this thing called chronic pain and I would never heal from it. I was, 30 when I heard that. And I had a, early marriage and a young son. And fortunately, I had a science background and I was able to lean on that and understand that they were really showing me more about their limitation of the model they were working with. And they were telling me about the body, the human's ability to heal. But I had to sit with my concern. I got very concerned with that diagnosis and believed it for a while. And well, what's going to become of my life? And I was like, you know what? There's another way here. This is. And it took me a while, but it was I felt like it was courageous for me just to kind of sit in that darkness and realize that I needed to find another perspective. And I did. And really the perspective was that diagnosis was only in from the scientific framework viewpoint. We heal in the all that is, not just in the part that science can comment on. Because it can't comment on anything outside of its framework. It's limited. But we live in the all that is, not just in the part that science can talk about. And I knew that I needed to change my perspective and my reference point for where my healing was going to be taking place. That's not saying that science isn't helpful. It's just saying it's not the only answer. It's an incomplete answer.
And it's so true. There are lots of different ways. Especially now we know alternative healings. Absolutely, I agree with what you're saying. Medicine has its place as well. I'm not discounting that. But there are alternative medicines as well. And so is that what led you to your work?
Yes, because I was really in graduate school studying environmental studies when all this surgery started, and it really torpedoed my career in that direction. And then I ended up being in chronic pain for another 3 decades before we really were able to find a doctor that understood what it was. And I went into his program after all that time being in chronic pain, and I walked out 52 days later with no pain.
Wow.
And it was astonishing. And he never promised me that. He just said, I can help you reset your stress response. And I was like, I knew what he was talking about. I was like, great, let's do it. Right? So, and also he said he could help me get off the medication, which was also a huge piece. So one of the things that happened in that holistic chronic pain management program was there was a wellness practitioner there named John Newton, who brought in ancestral clearing as a modality.
Wow.
And I had never heard of such a thing. I knew of John, but I hadn't experienced his work. And anyway, so it was very effective, and I saw him use that process on us as a group. There were 20 of us that were all healing from chronic pain and getting off medication of it for it. And I saw him use it again and again. So it was part of the the healing modality that Dr. Prescott brought in, who ran the program. And it wasn't the only one, but it was a big piece. And so I know it was so effective for me. And I had an understanding of the challenges in my own family, in my lineage. And I was also very, I was really positively affected by the ancestral clearing process itself. So when I got out of that pain management program, I took the first training I could in ancestral clearing as a practitioner. And I've been in that process ever since. It's not all that I do. I do stress management generally, and I kind of occupy that space of healing from chronic pain. A lot of people are told they can't heal from chronic pain, and that's really kind of a misunderstanding of what chronic pain is. It's not taught, and there's some doctors that really know how to address it, but it's not kind of mainstream yet. It's getting there. Yeah.
That's brilliant. I'll ask you more about that because I'm really interested to find out about that. So, what were the key turning points in healing chronic pain, anxiety, and addictions then?
Okay, so great question. One of the things that we discovered about me, it doesn't happen with everybody. One of the things we discovered about me was that I had something called hyperalgesia, which is when opiates give you, when you get chronic pain, when you get pain from opiates. So, opiates, and I was also on benzodiazepines for panic attacks and anxiety. They're not meant to be taken long term. They're meant for a short spurt to kind of get you through something, and then you're done, right? But that's not how they were prescribed. That's all they had. It's all the doctors knew at the time, right? So what we found out was that the pain medicine was part of what was causing the pain. That was part of it. Another piece was I was carrying an ancestral burden, I was carrying ancestral stuff, and which we can talk about in a minute. And another part was very interesting. When I first got into I detoxed in a hospital bed for a while because I was on medication. It took a while to detox from that. And then I got into Dr. Prescott's classroom, and he asked me two really potent questions and it wasn't just me, it was the class, but I was just like, the first thing he said was, "What are you doing to contribute to your pain?" And I was affronted by that question. I was like, what are you talking about is doing to me? I mean, I was in total victim mode, and why not? I mean, nobody else had pointed me anywhere else, and I didn't. I was in my own stuff. But what was interesting was I got that attitude. I was like, I can't believe he just said that in this room of all places, right? But I got past that thought, and 2 seconds later, I was like, wait a minute. That he just implied in that question that I might have something to do with my own pain, and that got my attention, because it never occurred to me that might be part of the deal. I was like, wow, I actually have some power here. So with one question, he took me from feeling completely disempowered to empowered. So that was huge. And the second question he asked, again, attitude, he said, it wasn't so much a question, he made a statement. He said, "Don't judge the moment." And I'm like, dude, I'm just sitting here minding my own business. I'm not judging anything, right? But he wasn't talking about me in the moment. He was talking about my pain. He was talking about all of our pain. And I was like, oh my God, I've been judging my pain as bad my whole life. Now we come by that honestly, because when we're little kids and we're in the playground and, one crashes into another or something happens, like, right, what happens? The adults rush into the area and try and make us stop crying as soon as possible and give us medicine for the pain. They never say to us, pain is part of healing. It's completely like, so the subtext of all that behavior is we're at war with pain, right? So Dr. Prescott really helped to reorient my perspective on looking at pain. And between Dr. Prescott and another friend of mine, who's also a teacher, Guru Prem Singh Khalsa, he says, pain is the currency of transformation. Be careful how you spend it.
Wow.
Right? So I had two really powerful teachers, like boom, boom, really helping me to reframe how I was looking at my experience. And so that's the answer to that question. Those were the turning points. I mean, one was like, wait a minute, my perspective has to be bigger when I first got diagnosed. And then once I got into the pain management program, it's like, oh, and my perspective needs to be different. Right.
Double-edged sword.
Yeah. So that I hope that answers your question.
So how did that shape your mission then?
Well, yeah, that was the thing. I was in a treatment facility and a recovery facility, and there were 800 patients on the campus, and 80 of them went to relapse school in the afternoon, and the other 20 of us went to pain track for the chronic pain stuff. And so I wasn't getting any training in relapse school. So I went to my counselor and I said, well, I'm not getting any training in relapse. What are we doing here? And she looked at me and she said, there's an 80% relapse rate in the first year. That's what, just for people that are on on drugs or alcohol or whatever the addiction is, right? She made that statement. And I thought, well, the first thought I was like, I'm doomed, because I didn't like the odds. And the second thing was, well, what's wrong with this model that we're only getting a 20% success rate? We got to do better, right? So I vowed really in that moment that once I got my own sea legs in my recovery, that I would do what I could to move the needle on that. And my part of the addiction recovery community really is the chronic pain part. And I bring in the ancestral clearing part. So I bring in the stress management and historical trauma. And I work with the recovery community, but I work with all kinds of people that don't have to be in recovery.
How does neuroscience and somatic awareness and spiritual wisdom work together?
That would be working through the present moment. So, I mean, that's kind of a big question. We could do a whole couple of podcasts on that one. Right? In chronic pain, we don't want to be in the present moment. I'm like comparing my current moment to the past. Oh, I remember this when, and what do I do about this later? Like, I'm not here. That's actually still, I'm 13 years in recovery, and I'm still working on developing a larger capacity to be present. I mean, it's really a practice. But in chronic pain, we're really not in the present. And where do we heal? We don't heal in the past or the future. We heal in the present moments. So that's okay. So that's number one. Number 2 point is the nervous system and the brain are always in the present moment. It's so interesting to me because the brain is this incredibly sophisticated, reactionary, reactive organ. And it has the momentum, our memories have the momentum of the past, and our behaviors, our repetitive behaviors have the momentum of the past in it. But what we do in the present moment is kind of what matters. So in the present moment, if I choose to go back into my old stress habit, now I'm playing the old program. But if I choose instead to do a somatic practice, like a breath practice, like I did this morning, to help calm the nervous system and steady the nervous system, which also, when you steady the nervous system, you steady the mind. So now you can be more present. Now I'm feeding a new way of life into the nervous system. I'm giving it a new choice. Oh, we're going to go in this direction. The thing is, though, that the brain and the nervous system love repetition. They thrive on repetition. So what we repeat is kind of what we get back.
Yes.
So when we're healing an old pattern, like an old stress pattern in this case, we have to keep practicing to build the new pattern. So the brain's like, oh, I'm going to repeat this one instead. Right. So and so we bring in somatic practices to support, learning how to live in a calmer state. And what's kind of cool is that in the autonomic nervous system, we have one thing we have control over, which is the breath. And when we calm the mind follows the breath. So I know during the day when my mind starts getting a little twitchy that I'm shallow breathing. I'm doing kind of shallow, quick breathing. And all I have to do is drop into a long, deep breath and my mind calms. That's pretty powerful, right? To know, oh, we've got the breath, the mind follows the breath. That's kind of how that's a kind of a quick way to paint that a picture for the answer you're maybe looking for.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Like you said, we could have hours talking about that, but yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, how do we carry the imprints of our lineage?
We have the DNA, which is the genetic information that is kind of like hair color, skin color, eye color, that kind of thing. And then that's the DNA. And then we've got the epigenetic, the switches that are on the DNA that turn on or off depending on our environment. And the way I like to think about it is when we're born as a let's put it this, we'll go back a generation. When our mother was in our grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
when our mother was about 4 or 5 months, I think it's about 4 months, the eggs all her eggs that she's ever going to have begin to develop then. So now I'm sharing space with my mother and my grandmother, or the egg that is going to be me, sharing space with my mother and my grandmother. And so the juices, the energetic experiences that my grandmother is having, my mother's picking up on, like her nervous system. What's happening? Is she full of fear? Is she ill? Is she excited? Is she joyous? Like, what are the things, right? What are the things that are affecting her? That isn't just in the mind, Anita. You can't separate mind, body from spirit. They're all entwined, right? So remember we said the mind follows the breath. Well, there's lots of it's all one thing. So when the mother is, all kinds of things happen to pregnant women. They go through a lot of different emotions and stresses and strains, and we pick up on that as babies. But it also leaves an imprint in the egg. So so we've got 3 generations there. I'm connected into this generation and my mother's generation and my grandmother's. That's a piece of it. Another part of that is, think about that. Our grandmother was in her grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
And her grandmother was in her grandmother. And we can go back all the way back down to the first mother. And now we've got a lot happening there, right? I can take you into a little bit different perspective on this, just from a point of evolution. I studied evolutionary biology a little bit as part of my science background. If you think about living systems, there's energy moves through the system, and it seems to me that the system is a self-adjusting system. It knows how to kind of readjust itself to fit circumstances that as they arise. And it feels to me like the things we come in with from that point of view are the system's best guess about what we're going to be encountering in this generation that we're coming into. So there's that. And part of that is like the burden that the imprints the stuff that our parents and grandparents and so forth went through. Grandfather was in World War I, and my father was in World War II. I can remember being, this is going to sound kind of crazy, but I can remember being, and my mother was also she wasn't in it, but she was very affected by it. She lost her mother, and her mother was killed in the Second World War. I remember being 4 years old and sitting in the living room. And of course, I didn't have words for it, but I felt it. I felt this heavy presence in the family, and I didn't, and I couldn't speak about it, and nobody would have wanted to hear me speak about it anyway, because we didn't talk about stuff like that. And it wasn't really until I got into ancestral clearing that I understood what it was. I was really feeling the burden, some of the burden in the family around what had happened in that particular, around war. I mean, there are plenty of other things in the lineage.
So how can you recognize ancestral influences?
Yeah, that's a good one. So we say if we experience something in this present moment and we have a big reaction to it, we say if it's hysterical, it's historical. Again, an example, maybe there's an example, I don't want to put you on the spot, but maybe there's an example for you in your life who's like, well, when I get around this thing, I always have this big, reaction to it. I have a big reaction to injustice in the world. I've had to do a lot of work around that. I've got a hot button on that. But you can go back into my lineage. We have records going back to 12 generations on my mother's side. And you can see there was religious persecution in the lineage. And we got, our land was taken from us because of that, right? More than once. In a couple of different generations. So it's kind of no wonder that injustice, I got a hot button around injustice, right? It's in the lineage.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, but you can feel it as a somatic. You can feel it in the body as this, intense pressure and heat, and it's kind of like a fire flares up, and oh my God, right? Ancestral clearing can help to help with that. I'm actually doing a group event tonight, specifically on clearing generational imprints around injustice. It's just, that's all we're going to be looking at is that. Right.
But tell me, what is ancestral clearing?
Yeah, that's the process that was pioneered by Howard Wills, and then later further developed and was taught by John Newton, whose his website is healthbeyondbelief.com. He teaches it as well. Howard doesn't teach it. I'm one of John's practitioners. So it's an energy healing modality. We're very careful about using that word healing because we're not doctors, right? But it's an energy modality that helps release the spiritual aspect. We address the spiritual aspects of physical, mental, and emotional stuff. That would be the best way. And we do it in a very specific way. It's a prayer practice. And so we call in. So think about this. If I have an issue, as example, we talked about it, hot button around injustice. Well, I don't, I'm working on it, but I'm not, I can't clear it by myself. So we call in source energy. We call in, we put it in a setting of a prayer. So we're triangulating the thing with source and our wish to release it. Right. And my experience in this practice, because I've had an awful lot of clients at this point over the years, you don't have to believe in a higher power for it to act on you. It's kind of like gravity is going to act on you whether you believe it or not, right? But free will is part of this. So if we ask for help, even if we don't believe in a source, we still get the help. It's pretty cool, right? If that makes sense. Yeah.
So this is how it can help us by getting rid of things.
Well, okay. So I'm going to be.
How will it help us then? Let me ask the question.
Yeah, I'm going to be super careful about how we word that. In my experience is when I try and get rid of something, I make it bigger. So because I'm trying to push it away, and in ancestor clearing, we're actually looking straight ahead at the bully that's like injustice for me, bully, and we're we're realizing we're feeling what we feel about it, that physical sensation, like I said, heat and pressure and tension and oh my God and that kind of stuff. And then we're asking Source to help us release that which no longer serves us. So we're asking it to help us release. We're not asking it to take anything from us. We're asking it to help us release. So we actually, in the prayer, that the prayer practice, we use the word forgive very specifically to mean offer up that which no longer serves us. That's where we're offering it up to Source. And that's really in a nutshell how it works. There's about 30. That's a big practice. There's about 30 different ways at this point that we can get at the burden. I can kind of do one example of
I'd like an example, please.
of how ancestral clearing works here, and everybody can have an experience of it. But if you want to have a private session, then we can. There's all kinds of ways we can get at what people are carrying. But for now, we'll just kind of do this as a group clearing. And I thought, because of the times and how they're kind of landing with not just me, but with pretty much all my clients and everybody I know, that I would bring in an ancestral clearing prayer to release self-doubt. As the times are challenging, and we want to not, it would be okay. It would be good for us if we could release the blocks that we have around feeling confident, right, to move forward, right. So it'll just take a few minutes for me to go through this prayer. But everyone that's listening, if you could just sit quietly and notice kind of what are you feeling in your body. Notice the like I can feel my my seat on the chair, and I can feel my feet on the floor. My back is on the back of the. And I have a little bit of pressure in my lower cheeks right now. I can feel a little bit of tingling there. I've got a little bit in my upper chest, and just noticing whatever that is for you, and just let these words pass over you. Remembering that we use the word forgive to mean offer up that which no longer serves us. And we offer it up to whatever you call that which created all creation. Divine Spirit, Creator, God, source of all that is, thank you for your infinite gifts, for the breath of life, and for the unseen stream of love that carries us through the generations. We come to you humbly and gratefully and ask your help for us, for all versions of us, all of our relationships and all of our ancestors and all of their relationships across all space, time, dimension, realms, lifetimes, and incarnations. For all inherited energies and patterns passed down to us that were the residue of wounds we didn't create, but we were born into. For all the stories spun from them. For all the misunderstanding, blame, and suffering that followed in the lineage as a result. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please and thank you. For all the times any of us were abandoned, neglected, not supported, nurtured, or loved in the ways that we needed. For the times any of us behaved like this to others, or weren't able to offer safe harbor to others for whatever reason. For all survivors' guilt, and for the times any of us stood by and watched others suffer and were unable to help. Please help us all to forgive and release anyone involved directly or indirectly, and help us all forgive ourselves, please and thank you. For everything that led to and arose from arguments, disagreements, fights, battles, war, Holocaust, genocide, persecution, slavery, or any other oppression, repression, or injustice of any kind. Please help us all forgive everyone involved directly or indirectly, and help us forgive ourselves, please and thank you. For any time we made mistakes we couldn't come back from, or weren't able to rectify, that caused harm in any way to others, to the land, or to ourselves. For the times when, no matter what we did, we couldn't seem to get things right, and how we lost our self-confidence and no longer trusted ourselves. Please help us all forgive and release one another, and forgive and release ourselves, please and thank you. For all rejection and all the ways generational criticism eroded our confidence, everything that led up to and arose from that. For the harsh judgments that said nothing we did was ever enough. For when our worth was tied to behavior rather than our being. For all the times love was made conditional on performance, perfection, or obedience. Please help us all forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please, and thank you. For the patterns of comparison and competition within the family, favoritism, and how when we measure ourselves against one another, which fed into dysfunction and suffering within the family. Please help us all forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please, and thank you. For the shame of being too much or not enough, for all the ways we hid, silenced ourselves, or made ourselves small in order to avoid judgment or even draw attention to ourselves. For the hunger for approval left by emotional neglect, for the invisibility we learned as safety, and for the perfectionism we carried to shield ourselves from criticism. Please help us all forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please, and thank you. For the fear of speaking truth after being bullied, mocked, dismissed, ignored, shunned, or persecuted, and for the times we stood powerless to help as we watched this happen to others. For the dreams and desires we buried so as to not rock the boat, or because in all the dysfunction, we lost track of our dreams and the inspiration beneath them altogether. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please, and thank you. For any self-abandonment woven into our lineage, any vows of martyrdom passed down as loyalty, belief that suffering was survival, or silence was safety, for the unspent tears of grief in the lineage and the effects of unresolved trauma we carried forward, for the unspoken role, the caretaker, the fixer, or peacemaker that kept us denying our own needs. Please help us all forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please, and thank you. For the inherited stories of failure, shame, and exile that whispered, oh, don't trust yourself, and don't trust life, and don't trust Creator. For the fear that following our intuition would bring danger or loss. For any time we weren't able to help no matter what we said or did, and all that meant to us about ourselves, even life, each other, and even you, Creator. Please help us all forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please, and thank you. For the ways we internalize suffering as identity, equating endurance and even exhaustion with worth. For the times we felt let down on any level. For all the inverse burden, and any time any of us experienced these energies in the womb and took them on. Please help us all forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please, and thank you. Please help us release one another and release ourselves from these burdens now and forever, for once and for all. And please help us remember always your love flows through us, beyond condition, beyond performance. Help us to feel this love in our own hearts and realize it in others. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. But just taking a nice big breath in and let it out and just notice how that feels in the body.
Yeah, very relaxing.
Mm-hmm.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Where should someone start if they do feel stuck in patterns?
Well, as I said, the present moment, we heal in the present moment. So we feel what we feel. It's like we need to feel what's coming up. And in this practice, we feel, and then we can say, Creator, for me and my family, my relationships, my ancestors and their relationships for this issue. Please help us all forgive and release one another, forgive and release ourselves, please, and thank you. You can kind of make a little short prayer, but the present moment is really a big piece of it. And there are a number of people that work in the ancestral healing arts. So I'm one of them. I'm happy to do so. I do, you can hop on and get a 15-minute free consults with me and, book a session if you want on my website. But there's a lot of people doing historical trauma work.
So what simple tools can they use today
noticing what comes up,
Mhm.
allowing yourself to feel it, and remember the breath. The mind follows the breath. So that long, deep breath, extending your exhale. So
Mhm.
it's like longer than the inhale, but making sure that you fully exhale before you inhale again, right? Long, slow, and deep like that as you're feeling what's coming up. That, and then you can say a prayer afterwards after you get the breath happening. Um, you know, that's a pretty powerful tool right there.
Mm. So, what roles does the body play in healing?
Well, again, we can't separate mind, body, and spirit,
Mhm. Okay.
but we are in this physical presence and that this physical suit. And think about, I mean, I like to make things really simple. Good information in, good information out. Junk
Mhm.
information in, junk information out. So what we're putting into the body, not just the food that we eat and the water that we drink, but the media that we're all the things that we're bringing in from the environment, the body's gonna take all that in and do the best it can. It's got incredible intelligence for healing in it, but we got to be very discerning about what we're bringing in, right?
Mhm.
In order to
Excellent.
get, yeah, that the greatest healer in your life lives within you. A doctor can stitch up a wound instead of bone, but they can't tell the body how to heal. Like only the body knows that. So that was a big teaching for me to shift my orientation from the doctor's going to fix me to no, actually, the doctor's going to help me set conditions for
Yes.
optimal healing, but the body's doing the healing, right? So that's an important message, I feel.
So, if there was one key takeaway you want every listener to walk away with today, what would that be?
Well, you can heal from chronic pain, that's for sure. And the burdens that you carry from your lineage, you don't have to carry them anymore, right? You can release those.
Mm.
And then we can see more clearly without them.
Because you have a whole book on it called The Way Through Chronic
Mhm.
Pain,
Mhm.
Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power. And listeners, the links will be in the show notes. So do please take a look at that if that is for you.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. So where can the listeners find you online, your book? What's your website, Elizabeth?
Oh, yes, you can find me at my website, which is my name with a hyphen. So Elizabeth with a hyphen Kipp.com. You got to put the hyphen in there. You'll find the other Elizabeth Kipp, who's a web designer and a photographer who's amazing, but she's not me. So
Mm.
it's Elizabeth with a dash Kipp.com.
So thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey and your insights today. I know this conversation will make a real difference for so many of our listeners. I truly appreciate taking the time to be here. Thank you again, Elizabeth.
Thank you so
It's been
much.
such a powerful and inspiring conversation. So we are all about Create the Courage to Be Fearless podcast. What is your definition of courage?
My heart is so courageous. My mind can't even track how courageous my heart is. The energy is so powerful, and every time I feel like I'm at my wit's end, there's more courage in my heart. So courage is really is a heart centered. It's really our heart that's saying, it's cheering us on and saying, you got this, girl.